It's 5 o'clock. Let's get our meeting started. So I'd like to call to order the Bloomington Historic Preservation Commission meeting for Thursday, July 13th, 2023. Dee, would you do the roll call? My speakers are off.
You guys are cutting out again.
Somebody's speakers are on.
I'll check again.
Okay. I don't know why I pressed something and it turned on. Okay.
Is that good, Dee?
Okay, thank you.
Sorry about that.
Okay, Marlene Newman,
Oh, we don't have Marlene tonight.
Ernesto Castaneda, Daniel Schlegel, Sam DeSaller,
Here.
Matthew Sutton,
Here.
John Saunders,
Here.
Elizabeth Mitchell,
Here.
Allison Chopra, Bernard Cross,
Here.
Duncan Campbell,
Here.
Kirsten Hawley, Chris Sturbaum.
No. All right, thanks, Dee. I need approval for the minutes from the June 22nd meeting.
So moved.
Dee?
Guys, please start it.
Go ahead, Dee.
Did Bernard say yes?
Yes, I'm here.
Yep.
Oh, thank you.
Approval of minutes?
Yeah, approval minutes, Dee. We had a Sam, you approved it and Renard seconded. Yeah.
Okay, I'm not hearing everything you guys are saying.
Could be the weather. It's getting.
Yeah, it could be. So we have a moval to approve minutes. Sam second. Is that right?
I firsted.
You first it. All right.
Renard.
Renard second. So we need you to do the roll call.
Okay. Sam DeSaller,
Yes.
Matthew Sutton,
Yes.
John Saunders,
Yes.
Elizabeth Mitchell,
Abstain.
Bernard Cross.
Yes.
Motion carried.
All right, great. Thank you, Dee. All right, let's move to certificates of appropriateness, staff review, which is going to be Gloria.
So we had one staff review case at 1205 South Rogers Street. This is a non-contributing in the McDowell Historic District. The petitioner requested new windows, doors, and siding. Staff comments the following: the proposed doors and windows complied with the acceptable threshold within the guidelines, and the petitioner acquiesced to using horizontal siding in order to comply as well. The petitioner originally wanted vertical siding, and staff was not going to approve that, but would allow him to bring it to the HPC, but instead he went ahead and modified his application to include a cement board, horizontal cement board siding. So the photo of the structure, how it is now, and some of the materials that are being proposed. Let me make this small. Okay. So yeah, that's it for staff approvals.
All right, thank you, Gloria. Okay, we're going to move on to COA 23-48.
So we're reversing the order of it. However, let me see. Is John McDowell or Pat online? If not, I'll skip them if they're not online.
Yeah, I don't see them yet.
So I went ahead and and put all the very small projects in front to get through them quicker. And I had put 516 West 3rd Street because the petitioners are in a different time zone and have limited access to the internet. But if they're not here, they're not here. So
we'll postpone them and see if they join us here shortly. Let's move on to COA 23-44. 301 North Morton Street.
I believe that Bruce Norton is online. Bruce, can you use the raise hand feature so that I can,
Oh, and the parishes are with us now too.
I think so. Let me just do the S to unmute. Okay. So 301 North Morton Street, also known as the Illinois Central Railroad Depot District. This is not contributing. This is a notable building. The petitioners are requesting new signage. Staff found that the proposed signs were inspired in form and style by the existing precedent, not precedents, precedent at the site. However, one of the signs is proposed to hang from the awning, which is inappropriate for the historic structure. However, the sign could be placed on the wall as long as it does not cover windows or other historical detailing. Therefore, staff recommends conditional approval of COA 23-44 with the caveat that all 4 signs be placed against the wall without covering windows or architectural details or hanging from the awning. So basically from the canopy. So this is the location. We all know this building and walk past it. It's going to be given a new life as in retail. And so the proposed signs with the yellow back and the black look very much like the existing, the frame and everything emulate the existing historic railroad signs without imitating them too closely. However, this one rag stock sign that you see that's hanging, I as staff recommend that it be placed against the wall and not be just clipped there hanging, because it just breaks with the flow of the historic structure. So yeah, and with that I leave it to you.
All right, thanks, Gloria. Bruce, do you have anything to add?
No, the picture you have is I think I adjusted that sign that was hanging there and was showing that on the wall, but that's not a problem. There's space up there for what we want to do.
Okay, thank you. Question, Sam?
Let's see. So the signs are aluminum with a wood frame and vinyl letters. What's the back of the sign, especially if you were planning to hang it from the awning? Would that be an additional sign facing the other way, or what's the back surface of that look like?
No, it would just be the back of the aluminum is white, and then the frame that we're going to build around it would be black, like Gloria said, to resemble the existing sign that's on the south end of the building. But they'll all be, now with the change, everything will be back up against the building, so you won't see the back of any sign.
So you withdrew the one hanging from the awning? Is that what I'm hearing?
It was Gloria's recommendation that that sign not hang, be placed on the wall.
Yeah, I understand that. But he's withdrawn it. I didn't see that in the packet, is why I'm asking. The packet had signs hanging from the awning.
I thought I resubmitted that, but it's going to go up above the little bit of a roof that's over that east elevation, where the sign, if you have the picture that shows the sign hanging, it's going to go above that roof on that elevation. So it'll be on the wall just like the others on the west side.
I could verify our emails.
And then could we see pictures of where those signs and have are supposed to
I think
be?
you've got
And
those,
have the
Gloria.
petitioner confirm them?
What you have, I am out of town, I'm on my phone right now, but what I submitted was the locations for the signs, and then I did resubmit a drawing with it on the wall and not hanging.
Go forward.
Yeah, whenever you can, if you could send that to me, because I'm not finding it in my emails, but feel free to resend it. And
Sure, let's see this, where he had placed a sign above. I think it's in your next slide.
so
Yeah, there we go. There you go, Sam.
So are all of those locations correct? What I was hearing
Yes.
him say is that he's not putting one on the awning, which is the one at the bottom left. Is that true? Is that not true? I'm just trying to figure out where the signs actually are proposed to go. If this
It's going to go above, it's going to, on the east elevation, if you're, are you looking at a drawing that shows the sign below the canopy?
We see that one.
yes.
Okay, it's going to go on the wall above that canopy.
Okay.
And it'll be the same as the two signs that are on, or the sign that's on the west elevation.
Okay, I've got nothing further at this point, thank you.
Thanks, Sam. Bernard,
Nothing.
Elizabeth,
No questions.
Duncan?
So, window graphic, isn't that not considered a sign?
The what?
There's a printed face with wood frame, you know, as called, on your petition, it's called a window graphic, or do we not?
Oh, yeah, that's a printed, that will change, and it's gonna be beside the window. It'll be a framed piece as well, but it'll just have a printed graphic inside that black frame. And all of that conforms within the allotted square footage by city planning for the sign code.
So, it's very difficult to read that graphic, can you also,
Well, what they sent was quite honestly very blurry. It was very pixelated. But what it's going to be is just a picture of clothing that may change from time to time, possibly seasonal. But the size will never change.
okay, thank you.
And quite, this is just between us, but quite honestly, if that was not going to be there, I don't think that's that big a deal, to be quite honest.
Well, I would consider it a sign, is my comment. And we don't-
Yeah,
we can't-
it is.
And
Yes,
we,
it
and we
is a
can't
sign.
see it. And are you
Yeah.
gonna get it reapproved every time that you change it? I mean.
Well, if they want to, it would just be, I thought it would probably just be a city planning for a new permit. But if it has to go, if you guys want it to go through the committee, then I would recommend to them that they don't do it.
Well, the way the rules stand now, every time you change a sign, it has to come through us on a historic building.
Okay, then I'm gonna recommend to them that they do not do that sign.
So it would be nice for us to be able to see up close what all of the graphics are that you're proposing for the building, including their exact location.
Okay, and I
Because
thought
this
I
is
had
just kind of
submitted
a
that.
shot in the dark, to be honest with you.
What's that?
It's just kind of a shot in the dark. We need to be able to verify, look, the sign, content, size, et cetera, location, so if there's
do
ever
you
any
not have-
variation, we can call you on it.
I submitted drawings. You don't have any in front of you?
I never received, I have an email where you stated that you were, going to be back in front of us, but I actually don't have, give me one
Because
second.
when I got the information from you about the one hanging from the canopy, I readjusted that, showed it on the wall, and sent it back to you that same day.
Give me one second. If I can pull it up, then we'll
Well, that's what we're looking at here.
Okay,
sort it out.
so you should be showing the west elevation and the south elevation, and then I made the change for the east and put it on the wall.
I have, okay, the last email was about resubmitting and that there were no changes. I'm looking for earlier. Give me one second, let me see if it's. I don't have any additional, you probably did work on this, but I don't have it. So if I did receive it, then it was deleted at some point by accident, but I honestly have not
Yeah.
received any. I have an email where you said, where you stated, looks like the project is back on, that what is the next meeting date, and there are no changes from
Yep.
what was submitted earlier.
And do you have that drawing? Because I think, I'm sure I sent it because I thought I talked to you, possibly, somebody said that the one hanging on the canopy was probably not gonna be allowed. I made a change and resent it. So, yeah, I mean, it could possibly have been deleted, but that whatever day I talked to, and I thought it was you, Gloria, but I wouldn't, you know, I can't swear to that, but whoever I talked to that said it would not be allowed hanging, I made the change and resubmitted the drawing.
Do you have access, even if on your phone, to your email that you can re-forward it to me, please?
I'll see if I can get it. I'm not sure if I can or not. The problem is these guys certainly don't want to wait another month. And I don't know any way around that. I can look and see, and I could also just send it to you first thing in the morning, but if the only change that you have over the drawing that you started with is just that one sign is on the wall above the canopy. And then we'll omit the one with the graphic, the small one on the side. We can omit that.
So Bruce, what you're saying right now is you're just gonna have the one sign that'll be above the canopy, and if need be, would come back to us?
Yes, yeah.
Another,
That would be,
Bruce, another option is that you can also submit a temporary sign permit that I can get to you, like I can turn it around for you tomorrow if it's adequate, and then we can revisit the permanent sign when the HPC meets again. It's not ideal, that's another option. But
so
yeah.
would that allow the signs to move forward?
So it would allow for a temporary sign to be placed so that the business can open.
So we could put banners up there?
Yeah, but that would be another,
Okay.
that would be a staff COA. I've done it with other companies.
Okay, and city planning is gonna, that would go through with city planning?
Yes, that would go through city planning.
I mean, would they approve that based on your recommendation?
They would approve it based on their UDO. City planner staff is here, he can respond to that.
I can
Well,
just,
I know temporary signs can only be 16 square feet. And you're only allowed one.
So, I mean, it's kind of like a Band-Aid, but a lot of companies have done it when they're opening. But yeah, like the first option might be reasonable. What do you?
Yeah,
This is a second option in case you wanted to explore that.
Well, how about if we do this, see if this would work with you. So you have my original submission, correct? You do have a picture with
Yes.
signs on the west, okay. So can we approve the sign on the west side and the south side, and then next month approve the sign on the east side?
West side. Wait.
what's on the west side, Bruce? I don't see, is that the little picture there in the corner?
It's up above, under the second floor windows, it's on the
Oh, yeah,
wall
yeah.
underneath those windows.
Okay. So if I'm understanding, it's right there above in those windows on that little photograph in the bottom right-hand corner there. And we can't really see it.
Yeah, it's a 30, what they're allowed, what city planning allows is 100, it would be 100 square feet of signage, because there's 2 elevations on public right-of-ways. So the 3 signs, and the signs are 25 square feet each. So we're essentially using 75 square feet of the 100 allotted to us. Each side would have a 25 square foot sign. And if we could at least approve the west and south side, they could be up and running. And then next month, I will resend that picture again of the one on the east side, and we could approve that at the next meeting.
There you can
because they've waited a month since, because that
Yeah.
last meeting was canceled.
You got it. Scroll back. to
And
the
then
right.
after that, the sale fell through, but now it's back on, so that's why we're here.
Yeah, go back, Gloria, go back, keep it your 200%, then go back to that little photo,
Which photo?
the bottom right, that one there, because when you blew it up to 200, we could see the sign, there we go. Can you see where he's proposing it to put it right there between the two windows up above? That would be on the north side of the building, I think.
Yes, that's correct. Because the freight sign is below or the little parapet wall that comes out, whatever they would refer to that.
Right.
So it'll be above that. So that sign is 25 square feet. The one identical on the west side is 25 square feet. If we could get those approved, then waiting to get the one on the east side would be a minimal issue, because they'd have two on the two busiest streets. They'd have those two, and they could we could get those into production.
Okay, thanks, Bruce.
Yep.
Questions? I left off with Elizabeth, Duncan, Matthew. Okay, I think I've asked my questions. Sam, do you have any other questions?
I don't have questions, I have comments.
All right, let's move to comments. And Sam?
I don't feel we can move forward with this. I don't feel we know where the signs are. I don't feel we know what the signs look like. I know we know the size of them and the materials of them, but reading the graphics is impossible. It would be good for the next submission to have the drawings labeled, so, you know, especially I think this is the south elevation over on the right-hand corner. I'd get a front-on elevation photo of whatever you're gonna do there, because that one in particular is egregiously difficult to read. And I guess the only other comment is that I don't agree with staff's assertion that awning signs are inappropriate on this building. If you look back at railroad, historic railroad structures, they have signs in weird places. They've got them like where the petitioner is going to put them, but they also have them mounted above the gutters as like fin signs. They have them hanging from awnings. It's more rare, but that does happen. And it's, it was in large part so that, people coming in on a train, they were big enough and the font was big enough so they could read it at speed. So I would not actually have an issue with the awning sign, provided that it was hung more in a manner it looks like it's sort of tacked to the bottom, so it's half on and half off, which isn't appropriate. But if you hung it all the way below, I think that would work, provided that it was at least 7'6" above the walking surface. You didn't bonk your head into it.
All right, thank you, Sam. Renard?
More or less what Sam said. I don't think I have enough information about where the signs are going, what they're going to look like, to make a decision. So.
Thank you. Elizabeth,
No
any
comments.
comments? Duncan?
Yeah, I sort of feel like I opened Pandora's box, but I mean, the problem for me is that it's not clear to me. I can't visualize the location by someone's description of where they're going to go on a picture that doesn't show the location. That's just.
I'm
me.
sorry to interrupt. Do you not have the original picture that I sent for the last month's meeting? The only thing that was wrong with that picture was that the sign was shown on the canopy or hanging below the canopy.
That picture
that
shows
email
one
that I
corner
sent
of the
has
building
pictures
without any context.
of the signage on the west side and the south side. And I can't get a straight-on picture of the south side because of the tree. It has to be angled.
So, to resume my comment, I don't think this is, if it has been thought through to the satisfaction of the client, it hasn't been presented as if it were. So, we need to be able to see not only the sign and its content and its color and its scale to the building, which this doesn't appear to be in scale. um, and be able to see the location, which is the way we do all our signage. And I'm sorry that we're stuck on this because it should be something that's very perfunctory, but in this case, it's impossible for us to evaluate it. And then the confusion with the face image or whatever it's described as in the window just added to my confusion anyway. So I would like to see, I would like to see something done to expedite their ability to move the business in, but I'm not satisfied that we have a reliable graphic to vote on.
Thanks, Duncan.
I have no additional comments.
Okay. I don't have any additional comments other than that if we could get you approved for something temporary and you come back to our next meeting with better photographs and better graphics so we can understand what your total plan is. Okay? So I need a motion.
What's the clock on this one, Gloria?
Give me 1 second, I can pull that up for you. So this one was submitted on this is not the right date. It says May. Sorry, I'm just pulling everything up. So this was submitted on June 29th,
So we have some
resubmitted.
time.
Okay, thank you.
Let's go.
I'm gonna move to continue this one.
Okay. We have a motion.
Second.
Great. D?
Sam DeSaller,
Yes.
Matthew Seven,
Yes.
John Saunders,
Yes.
Elizabeth Mitchell,
Yes.
Renard Cross.
Yes.
Great.
Motion carried.
All right, Bruce, we're going to continue to the next meeting, and Gloria will work with you about a temporary sign so you guys can get open. No banners.
I'm gonna look on my phone. I'll see if I can find it. If I can, I'm gonna send it to you again, Gloria, so.
That'll be fine.
If it,
But we've already,
that,
we have to
Pardon?
move, we've already decided how we're going to handle this. So you're going to be on our next meeting. We're
Yeah,
going to postpone
okay.
each other, and I'm sorry, but that's the best we
So
can
am
do
I.
right now.
so am I.
So question, are we
My,
going to, sorry, Bruce, are we going to convene a meeting on July 27th for this case, or are we gonna extend it to August? We have no cases for July 27th, so now we have a case. Yeah,
I also submitted one for.
that one
Oh.
is gonna be staff.
I was not aware of that.
can I ask a favor? Since the last meeting was canceled and then this one you can't find the picture, is there any way, because they may pull the plug on the thing because he was furious that the first meeting was canceled. So is there any way that we could deal with this in July, so we can get this going? Because 16 square feet of signage on the building compared to 75 is a postage stamp.
Yeah, we can meet on the 27th, that's fine.
Yeah. You gotta meet
That's
with
what
me.
we gotta do.
Yeah, okay. We'll put you on our next agenda, our next meeting, which will be the 27th.
Okay,
If you wanna forward those signs to me, because I'll be opinionated before the meeting, I can give them feedback. That'll be helpful.
I will send the exact same thing to you, Gloria, in the morning by 8 o'clock.
All right, and Bruce, make sure that we can see the signs pretty clearly on the buildings.
You can.
Okay.
It's the same exact thing I did with the other two meetings that I've had with you. It's the exact same thing I did.
Okay,
So,
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll have it again in the morning and I'll let my customer know it's another 30 days.
No, it's only gonna be 2 weeks. We're not,
It's gonna be
Oh,
14
oh,
days.
July 27th.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
all right,
Okay.
wonderful. I'll let them know. I'll have that to you first thing in the morning.
all right, thank you, Bruce. I noticed.
All right,
that-
thank you.
Thank you. So we're gonna go back to COA 23, what is that one? $23.48, because I see that Leslie Parrish is with us. There we go.
Wait, 40, which one did you say?
2348, 516 West 3rd Street.
Ah, no, they're not.
Oh, I'm sorry, 2346,
Oh, okay.
because I don't see the Pashikos or the McDowells yet.
Just think backwards, 'cause mine starts
Yeah,
at
yeah,
27,
I just,
27.
we tried to start with the smaller ones first today because we had some petitioners.
We have some,
We're gonna have issues,
right.
getting
We have We
online.
have the kiln, and then we have your neighborhood again.
Yeah, everything's a little all over the place, but we're gonna see them all.
Yeah, so let's just go ahead and do 2346.
I'm going to,
Sorry,
okay.
sorry, Gloria.
Okay, so
That's all.
COA 23-46, the petitioner Leslie Parrish is requesting for, new railings on the back deck of the house, 623 South Woodlawn Avenue, a notable structure in the Elm Heights Historic District. Staff comments that the materials are considered appropriate for the historic district. However, the railing design does not reflect the building style or design. However, the materials do face the back of the building, even though the back of the building also faces a public alley. The previous railing was not historic. And this is located over a more recent double garage. So there's points in favor and against. The style is not really very congruent with the historic district. However, due to its sort of secondary facade, or tertiary facade, one can even argue, staff does recommend approval for 23-46. However, staff also understands if the commission doesn't see it that way. Staff did send the application to the Elm Heights Historic District Construction Subcommittee, and at least one of the members also saw it, so I sent it to them twice, and at least one of them saw it. However, I didn't receive any comments in favor or against this project. So this is the proposed material and design, and it's to change the railing on the upstairs deck. Previous railing consisted of wood posts and iron rails. This would also be a 6 foot tall, 6 foot tall railing, so it's more like a privacy fence on the second floor. And this is the site. This is the location. It would be towards the back, towards the east. And the deck is towards the back, so there are 2 alleyways. It is quite visible from those alleys. Yeah, and this is one of those cases where I can understand, yeah, commissioners, I'll leave it to you to
All right.
determine what would be the most appropriate course of
All right.
action.
Thanks, Gloria. Leslie, do you have some additional comments for us?
No, I don't have any additional comments. It is facing the back alley, so it's not visible from the street. So it's really just my neighborhood that would be affected. And as far as I know, none of them really have any issue with it.
All right, thank you very much. Sam, questions?
No questions.
Bernard, questions?
No.
Elizabeth? Duncan?
Is there is the guideline, I see it's walls and fences, there's no separate guideline for railings or?
No.
I mean, I think question,
I think it's more of a porch.
it's a fence,
I mean, it's gonna be a patio, basically,
right,
on top of the garage.
right. So you can't, there's no transparency there, so it's not appropriate to call it a railing. But that said, if I could see through it, I'd feel more comfortable about it than I do. I went by there, it's totally private to the street. You can't see it, you're right. So if it's a party deck, it's a party deck, but I think the materials and the construction of it just seems antithetical to this building. Actually, the one that they took down, I understand it was deteriorated, seems much, much more appropriate to me. And the reason I say this is because when you want to be able to see the facades of a historic building, you don't want to put up things to obscure them. And this fence obscures it. So I would be more comfortable with it if it were actually a railing and you could see through it. I get that you need one if you're going to be hanging out up there, but I don't think this design is very good for the application, even being on the back of the building.
All right, thank you, Duncan. Matthew?
We're on questions right now?
Yep.
I have no questions.
Okay, I don't have questions, we'll save it for comments. Sam, comments?
I would reiterate what Duncan said, and, this is sort of considered an addition, and one of the lines on construction of an addition says, select exterior surface materials and architectural details for additions that are complementary to the existing building in terms of composition, module, texture, pattern, and detail. And I find this, the proposed replacement, incompatible, and I won't support it.
All right, thank you. Renard?
No additional comments.
All right. Elizabeth?
No.
Duncan?
I've made my comment.
All right. Matthew?
Well, I can totally understand what Sam and Duncan are saying, and I don't think it's, I mean, I can understand, I think it makes sense. However, I feel differently because I think that the garage addition has already thrown off any sense of, the property's original historic character from the rear. Since it's not going to be visible from the street, those are reasons I'm not concerned with it. It's not my favorite thing that they could do, but I could support it because it's not visible from the street, and the garage is already has kind of affected the way that house would have looked originally from the back in a negative way. So that's my comment.
Thank you, Matthew. I agree with Sam and Duncan and Matthew in a lot of ways. I think if they were to come back with a different kind of material or different kind of design, because I understand the need for privacy. I mean, you don't want people looking up there seeing what you're doing. So that's my comment. So we're going to need a motion.
I have a question.
Yes.
Is this gray shingled structure an addition?
Leslie, is the upstairs?
Yes, it was an addition.
How old is it?
How
long has it been
We
there?
bought it in 2014, so it was newly remodeled at that time.
So 2014.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
All righty. Any other comments, Duncan? Okay. So we need a motion.
I'm going to move to deny, but can encourage the petitioner to come back with a different, more architecturally compatible design.
Second.
Okay, D, roll call.
Sam DeSaller,
Yes.
Yes.
Sam DeSaller,
Yes.
Dee, can you hear
couldn't hear
us?
anybody.
Yes.
Thank you. Matthew Seddon,
No.
John Saunders,
No.
Elizabeth Mitchell,
No.
Bernard Cross.
Yes means you deny, right?
Yes means deny.
Yes.
I have 3 noes and 2 yeses.
Very
Okay.
confusing.
Yeah, well,
Say yes to
so that means we would either, we need to either have another motion to approve.
Wait, have you voted?
I did.
Okay.
I said, agreed, no.
No, okay.
So, can I get a motion to approve, subject to changes?
I'll go ahead and make that motion. I'm making a motion to approve subject to.
Okay. I'll second that.
Subject to what changes?
Subject to, subject to material changes.
Yeah.
John, may I ask a pause for a minute?
Yeah.
Dee, are you able to hear all of this?
Yeah, I can hear it until people kind of turn away and then it just kind of sometimes will fade out.
Okay, just because of the 2 different motions and I just want to make sure she's getting this down. I know we're recorded on cats, but I just want to make sure. Pardon me. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, changes to the material, so it's not like a privacy fence.
Oh, well, that's.
But don't we have to actually see the
Yeah, we
material?
can't approve it with an open end. I mean, we
I
have
would
to
say
know
we
what the
would-
design is.
If that's what you want, we would have to deny this one or postpone it, so that they could resubmit with different material.
Okay.
Or we can approve it as they've submitted it.
Then I'll make a motion to postpone
Oh, okay.
Okay. So we have a motion to postpone this to our next meeting. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Okay, Dee?
Sam DeSaller,
Yes.
Okay.
Matthew Seven,
Yes.
Joan Saunders,
Yes.
Elizabeth Mitchell,
it. Yes.
Bernard Cross.
Yes.
All right.
Motion carried.
Okay, so Leslie, you understand that we'd like for you to come back to us at our next meeting with some improvements to your design.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I understand what exactly needs to be changed. So it sounds like part of it is that it can't be a privacy fence. You need to be able to see the deck. And then I'm not sure what you mean by changes to the materials.
Okay. Sam, you want to address that?
Well, I mean, the petition as submitted is a very different style than the existing house. And when we talk about incompatibility, it looks like a fence that you would put on a modern house
Contemporary
or a contemporary house. And this house, even in the smaller details, the addition is less so, but the previous railing that was taken down is actually more compatible, much more compatible than what you're proposing now. I'm not saying that you got to put up exactly what you took down, but I would take a look at period houses. These are, bungalows, 4 squares from the 20s, and see how those sorts of things were done. It's usually pillars with infill fences, which can be of varying degrees of opacity. Usually they're all wood. They can be wood and metal. But what you're showing us in this photograph that's up here is the black iron railing and the horizontal cedar 1x6s, it looks like, or maybe even 1x4s. That is, it's not necessarily a fence type that's associated with that period of house. And the Elm Heights historic guidelines are some of the, I think I could probably still say, because nobody else has finished them yet, that they're probably the strictest ones in the city. So try to pay a lot of attention to compatibility and make it so
Okay,
that
so
the
it
railing
sounds like
reads
if
on the period that the house is from.
Okay, if I wanted to either make it higher or make it so that, I would like to have a little bit of privacy there. is it okay to try to do that, or are you requesting that it be visible, the actual inside of the deck be visible from the alley?
I think you will get differing opinions from different commissioners on that question. So we're gonna have to fight that one out when we see you again.
Okay.
So ask for what you want and we'll go from there.
Feel free to, this is Gloria from staff. Feel free to call me tomorrow or next Tuesday, and we can talk and like look at different, as staff, I can assist you as much as possible in looking at different models. And another exercise you can do is look at walk through the neighborhood if you are in the neighborhood this weekend, and if you're not in the neighborhood, walk through it via Street View on Google Maps if you're traveling, and you know, just to see like what the precedents are, with the caveat that some buildings have had changes done to them before it was a historic district. But that is one idea, to see like sort of the lay of the land. And another one is for us to, have a phone call or a meeting. We can schedule that tomorrow if you would like.
Okay, yeah, that would be helpful. Thank you. If I have a little more guidance, I would appreciate that.
Yeah, of course, of course.
All right, thank you very much. So, Gloria, which one do we want to go to next?
Well, John McDowell just didn't appear, so let me see.
So we got Leslie done, we got McDowell,
We could
we
do
got Washington.
We could go to Washington.
Okay.
I have Casey Taylor online. Are you here for the 360 North Washington Street?
Yes, and it's actually Layla Taylor.
Layla,
Sorry, I
okay.
just didn't realize the name was wrong on there.
Okay. I have Layla on my documents. Okay, perfect. Thank
Great,
you.
thank
So
you.
we could do that one next.
All right, so let's move to COA 23-45, 316 North Washington Street.
They're all a little out of order, so thank you for your patience. So the petitioner Layla Taylor for Fast Designs is applying for new signage at 360 North Washington Street. So staff comments the following: the placement of the sign does not physically impact the historic material of the building itself or adversely affect the site landscaping. Staff does recommend, like best practices, that the material and design be as compatible with the historic structure as possible. Therefore, staff recommends conditional approval of COA 23-45 with a recommendation of matching at least one of the colors or the gray to sort of go with a warmer tone. So instead of maybe the cool gray, use a slightly warmer gray, a stone color. And just wanted to show you, so this is the site and the location. So both the map and the photograph show the proposed location for the sign. And here we have the sign. The sign is proposed to be in black, gray, and white, and less than 10 inches thick. So.
Okay. Do you have anything to add?
No,
Layla?
I think that's about everything, but yes, we can definitely match a gray from the building on the sign and use that for the gray color on there.
All right. Thank you. So let's do questions. I'm going to call Matthew first.
I have no questions.
All right. Duncan? No. Elizabeth?
No.
Renard?
Is there a view that shows where the sign is going?
The
Okay.
little red.
Okay,
With the red, yeah, because that
All
was
right.
a question I was gonna ask.
okay, that's it.
Okay. Sam?
Can the petitioner talk to me a little bit about the orientation of the sign and the construction of the sign? It says it's made of aluminum, painted with vinyl graphics, but I don't quite understand, you say it's like, so it's a box of aluminum? And so that.
Correct.
Okay. And then is it gonna be facing parallel with the facade of the building, or perpendicular to the facade of the building, or at an angle?
It would be perpendicular to the facade of the building.
Okay. So it's more of a pedestrian scale walk-by sign kind of thing.
Correct.
And but it's about 4 feet high.
Correct.
All right, thank you.
No problem.
I haven't got any questions. And it looks like a nice design. Sam, comments?
It just feels a little big, but I'm glad it's not on the building.
Okay. Bernard, comments?
I agree with the color recommendations, so.
Okay. Elizabeth?
It's already been said, no
Okay.
comments.
Duncan? Nothing? Matthew?
No
No
comment.
comments? I don't have any comments, so we need a motion.
I move to approve COA 2345 with the request that the petitioner find some colors that match the colors of the house as was stated.
Okay, I'll second that. All right, Dee?
Sam DeSaller,
Yes?
Matthew Seddon,
Yes.
John Saunders,
Yes.
Elizabeth Mitchell,
Yes.
Bernard Cross.
Yes.
Motion
Motion
carries.
carried.
All right, thank you, Dee. All right, so we're gonna move over to COA 23-40, 917 North Fairview. Daniel, you're with us tonight. Very good. Gloria?
Okay, so this proposal, the petitioner is calling for an addition to an existing building using a pre-existing detached unit. Is going to attach it. So the addition would be barely visible, especially now from the street and alleyway, especially now with the edits done to the design. The height of the addition has been lowered from the previous image we had previously seen. The materials and proportions are not typical of the neighborhood. However, the property itself is eclectic. And we do have a lot of neighborhood comments and a neighborhood representative here. So staff recommends approval of COA 23-40. Here are lots of comments. So the Maple Heights Construction Subcommittee, and if we want to, you can look at it, but if we want to, we can let the committee member himself talk about this, but does not oppose the addition of a tiny house to the main household of 917 North Fairview. This property, although designated as contributing, does not materially contribute to the historic district's character. The tiny house addition is largely shielded from the public right-of-way. Neighbors who are most effective have spoken up in support of that we are aware of. I do have 3 letters that that you can find on the desk. I didn't put the letters on the presentation. And going back to the comments, the addition of the tiny house is not in compliance with the drafted guidelines, materials, and fenestration-wise, but the committee does not object to it since it is not viewable from the right-of-way. We defer to the commission on any advisement to the petitioner for design review. The 2 cases that have arisen from the proposed work of 917 have made it clear that our district guidelines need to be updated. So that is additional, but just within all of this.
Okay.
So here are some photos of how the site looks like now, and in fact the first image is sort of like where the addition would be the most viewable, and with that it should be hypothetically barely viewable. Here are additional photographs of the back of the building where the structure would be located. Here is the structure itself as it is right now. And here's a roof plan. There's a more recent, actually, no, these are it, sorry. I think that you emailed some more recent documents that I can pull up in a second.
Very minor. I don't think you see on this?
Plan-wise, elevation-wise, let me see, did I? Yeah, I think these are the more recent, so this is the more recent elevation. So you can see that the roof line has been lowered quite a bit from the previous time that you saw the proposal. And here's a rendering basically of the same image that we had seen a few pages previous. So that's basically the same view on the left. I can also pull up the PDF and have it on hand.
I think the southern elevation might be good too. I
Yeah.
can speak to the 3 changes I made. So Sam had asked about roof plans. I extruded the roof line that connects the structure to the main house from the existing addition off the back. I pulled that from its location all the way south. So now that roof line will be common to the roof line that's back there on the previous addition to the house. I went down a step into the hallway that connects and a step down in the tiny home. That reduced the overall height between 14 and 16 inches. And then, I'm sorry, I don't remember your name, sir, but you had asked about the hyphen, about having, so I did end up doing a glass connection piece there for 2 reasons. It's the same kind of glass pane as the front door of the house, and it's 36 inches wide to meet building code's requirement to have egress of 36 inches somewhere on the house, which I did not previously have. And then the wall as it turns will be siding matching the tiny house, taken off the tiny house as I put the door in and moved outside. That sits in kind of the crux of the tiny house as it sits against that, against the hallway. So if you were looking from the south, northeast, that's in the most recent drawing if you want to pull it up.
Give me 1 second that I checked my email. We do have some new that I can share with you if it opens. Okay. Stop sharing. Okay, stop share.
Yeah, that gives a clear image of where that roof line connects from. It just matches the shed that's on the attached porch that's on the back of the house now, extruded directly off of it.
And then
Oh, okay.
And the siding should turn that corner there.
Okay. All right, great. Okay. Daniel?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Sam, questions? You?
Would you go back to that axonometric for a minute that we were just looking at? Yeah. So, is this surface contiguous with that surface?
I think, yeah, for some reason the patterning did not come on these pieces. This one would continue around, so you have the wood that matches this.
Yeah.
I think a transom here would be the best to keep that full hyphen feel, but it could also be the siding. I'm agnostic to.
So what I'm trying to ask, is this piece of wall with the door above it in plane with this?
It's within a couple inches, but in plane is the intention, yeah.
Okay. And you're saying that the tiny house siding is gonna go here?
Yeah.
And then is this face of this gonna be, how are you gonna transition from this to whatever happens there?
If I put a transom in here, then it'll just be a full glass move here, and then it'll just be trim on either side.
Okay. Would you zoom back out a bit, please?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Where do you want to go?
I don't know. Let's see.
There's a
you're-
southern
okay.
elevation and southwest or southeast.
Do you have something from the southeast?
Yeah, that was the one that was just up.
Okay, wait, southeast, that's the southeast.
So you have something from this away?
Northeast,
Oh, right, sorry. So that's-
northwest, sorry, that would be northwest.
I don't have a northwest, no.
Okay, okay, I guess this is a good spot, but this is an existing porch roof,
Yes.
and you're just extruding that
Yeah,
over?
that's the move that made sense after you asked that question on roof lines and making them match up. And it dead ends in the correct place on, as the hip turns.
Okay.
So it's flashable there.
Okay. I think that's all what I got, thank you.
Renard, questions?
I have no questions.
Elizabeth?
No questions.
Duncan?
No
No
question.
questions? I don't have any questions. Let's do comments. Sam?
The Neighborhood Design Commission has signed off on this one, is that what? We've not gotten to it. I would love to hear from them before.
They're not objecting
He said
to
they're
it.
not objecting.
Okay. Okay. This is a weird one. I'm pleased that it's come down. I think the roof is a little bit of a train wreck, but the whole house is a little bit of a train wreck with all of the additions. I would just, you don't want to make a bad problem worse. I like that you are densifying the site. I think that makes a lot of sense ecologically, although, that's not our purview here. Our purview is historic preservation, and the argument the last time for approving the ADU was looking at the context of the building on the site for precedent. And this one is like, that one had a little bit of distance, and that distance, I think you can mitigate some of those differences between all the craziness going on in the ADU versus the different kind of craziness going on in the house. I think it's much improved. I'm still a little leery about how the building and the tiny house come together, especially at the roof. I don't know exactly what the perfect right answer is. This one's much better than the last one, especially bringing it down. But it still feels a little forced. It feels, porches kind of slide up into it, and this one is, it's a, one of these things is not like the others kind of situation. I don't know if that's helpful.
Renard?
I'm sorry, I don't know your name.
Daniel? Whittle.
Tom,
Oh, Tom.
you said that you're not,
Sorry.
what's the word?
Not objecting.
You're not opposing it, but are you supporting it?
It does not meet our guidelines. Fenestration, and one or two other things that are in the statement. However, it's not visible from the street, barely visible. So, and there are neighbors who have approved of it. Not to say that we've gone out and surveyed neighbors who don't approve of it. We don't know that. So I'm going to leave it exactly at that. We are not objecting to the project.
Okay, so I'm looking at the staff recommended, well, the bullet points on the staff recommends, and what concerns me are the last two: materials and proportions, and the property itself is eclectic. Now, I have a serious difficulty with this. The use of eclectic, it's an adjective, not a noun.
Right. I mean, the neighborhood feels that quite a lot was allowed for the ADU because it was eclectic. And it made it seem a little Let's to.
Having set the
fight
precedent
this
to now
issue.
oppose this. And that was my concern
Yep.
when we set the precedent,
That's right. And
right?
it-
And
it
now that a
seems
precedent
you
has
have
been
set
set, it's
precedent,
going to be,
at least for this property. Hopefully we can, hopefully we don't need to drag that precedent into other properties.
good luck. I don't see that happening, but thank you for your comment. Eclectic.
And that's.
What eclectic means is that it isn't one thing, like Frankenstein's monster. And I don't see attaching a third arm to Frankenstein's monster simply because it's eclectic is a good thing, or another eye to it. It's already what it is, and I don't see the need to justify adding this thing that doesn't fit simply because there are lots of other things on this building that doesn't fit. That does not make sense to me in any objective reality. It doesn't. I see this effort as being forced. I have this thing and I want to use it, and so I'm going to chop and change and force and twist and cajole it onto this building because I have it and I don't know what else to do with it. And I cannot support this. And we would be doubling down on a precedent which I don't believe should be set. I don't believe there was any justification for setting it in the first place, and I'm not going to continue what I believe was a wrong decision with another wrong decision. So I will not support this.
Thanks, Bernard. Elizabeth?
I know we've gone around and around about this, and I appreciate the changes and you trying to accommodate. With me, I do feel kind of like Bernard. I didn't care that much for it. But if your neighbors don't have a problem, who am I to say? So.
I'm a neighbor, and I have a problem.
Your neighbor.
Yes,
Yes.
and I do believe that there are lots of other people which.
Yeah.
I held a neighborhood association meeting at my house on Monday.
Uh-huh.
10 people came, and
It was not a neighborhood associated meeting. You had an open house,
Well,
which
I-
was advertised to the neighbors.
okay,
Okay.
8 to 10 people came, all in support. Several of them wrote letters. I'm trying to be like open to feedback, but no one says anything except at these meetings to me.
Okay.
All right, thanks, Jamie.
Okay.
Duncan?
Yeah, the last meeting, I talked a little bit about how I just think, you know, the new structure is just incompatible with the house, and I, you know, following compatibility guidelines as I understand them through Secretary Standards, it's hard for me to justify making it fit, assuming those standards need to be followed, and I believe they do. And it's kind of like, I feel, I don't know who said it felt forced, it was you, but imagine if I take my Bambi Airstream and back it up to my house and make a connection to it and call it part of the house. Is it compatible because I did that? No, it's not. You know, if I back my camper up to my porch and make a connection to it, it makes it part of the house, but it doesn't make it compatible with the house. And it's the you know, I think the tiny house thing is a great thing. I like the way you made this one. I've actually seen it when you've had it on display, but it's not compatible with the existing structure, and I wouldn't support it because of that.
Thank you, Duncan. Matthew? Well, I was comfortable with the last design, and so it would be kind of weird for me to not be comfortable with this one, when in fact you've lowered it and solved a couple of other problems. So I don't, I understand the concerns, just don't share them.
I think that my fellow commissioners have made comments, and I'm not going to add any. So we need a motion to approve or to disapprove.
I move to deny COA 23-14.
Okay, we have a motion for denial. Do we have a second? Yeah, I'm not hearing a second. So we need a petition for approval or a petition to continue it.
I move to approve, I just couldn't remember the number, 23-40.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I move to approve COA 23-40.
Okay. We need a second. I'll second it to move it forward. Dee?
Sam DeSaller,
Yeah.
Matthew Seddon,
Yes.
John Saunders,
Yes.
Elizabeth Mitchell,
Yes.
Bernard Cross.
No.
Motion
Thank
carried.
you. Thank you, Daniel. Good luck. All right. Let's move on to COA 23
John McDowell's here.
Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. McDowell's with us. So we're going to back up one more time. And we'll go to COA 23-48, 516 West 3rd Street.
Okay, give me 1 second while I find the right tab. Thank you for your patience, everybody.
Which one's this?
Where's the presentation?
This is 47.
Where is my presentation? Give me 1 second, please.
Mm-hmm.
What's the address?
Okay, give me 1 second, and I will pull it up very
Yep,
quickly.
516 West 3rd.
So this is for COA 23-48 at 516 West 3rd Street. The petitioners are requesting new awnings for 3 windows on the west facade. So the colors are carefully matched to the rest of the house, and the canvas awnings are considered as material are considered appropriate in the Prospect Hill Historic District. So staff recommends approval of COA 23-48. So this is the canvas material that's being proposed, and that is the location and design on the photo by it. And I have John McDowell online.
All right. Mr. McDowell, any additional comments? Mr. McDowell?
Wait, sorry, I'm clicking ask to unmute, but let me see if I can use the, I don't know if he can unmute. John, can you use the unmute or the chat function? So for context, John McDowell is at a public library in Montana right now trying to connect.
He's having a hard time.
John? Well, he is online.
There's no way we can.
Let me see. Thank you, everybody, for your patience during this meeting. Should I try calling the phone number?
Give it a try.
Is that okay?
I'm not going to oppose that.
Okay.
Hello,
Hi, is this Pat?
this is Pat.
Hi, Pat. You are at the Bloomington Historic Bloomington Historic Preservation Commission meeting.
Oh, yes, we're here. We have the computer already. We're just waiting for some time. Are you ready for us?
Yes, I've been trying to invite you to unmute so that you can
Yes,
speak.
we will go. It's Gloria. We're on. We're on. We'll be right there.
You are
Thank you, Gloria.
you can actually ask questions right now, or
Oh, okay. So my question is, do we get approval?
Question.
We're working on it.
Can you stay online or on the phone? Can you stay on Can you stay on the phone while the commissioners ask you questions?
Yes.
Okay.
Does that
great.
work?
Yes, that works.
Oh, hey, we got him.
Hello?
Hello?
Oh, you didn't even see him.
Okay.
I'm here now.
Okay.
Perfect.
Do you have any additional comments for us, John?
Hello.
Hi. Gloria's given us the presentation already about your awnings. Is there any additional information you'd like to give to us before we ask you questions?
Sorry, I didn't hear that. Did you ask me a question?
I was asking, so Gloria has already given us the presentation for your awnings. I'm asking, do you have any additional information or comments to our commissioners before we ask questions of you?
Okay, so two of the main reasons why we're doing this is because of the increased heat with global warming. That side of the house gets very intense heat, and the upstairs is already an attic conversion. So we do have blinds, but even with the blinds that are there, we're thinking this would be very good to keep the heat away out in the summertime. Also, when it rains now, that side of the house is getting more fierce rain. And so we're thinking that that would protect the house against the windows and the window, the woodwork around the window from any kind of damage. So we're really doing an aesthetic thing, but we're also doing a practical thing.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, let's do questions. Sam, any questions?
I guess they're just dimensional questions. You've got the fabric sample. You're going to run the fabric in the direction that the image shows, sort of, vertically. And then are you going to do the scalloped edges as shown?
Yes.
Okay, and how far out are you coming? Because that photograph looks like there's a pretty wide difference between where the trim stops and where the awning starts? How wide are they compared to how wide the trim is on the windows?
Well, if you were to specify exactly how wide you want them, I could probably tell. This is just a computer image. If you want to give measurements, you know, tell me where you want them, I could have the people who are going to make them do the measurements that you'd like.
Cool, all right, we'll get to that in comments, thank you.
All right. Renard?
No question.
Elizabeth?
No.
Duncan?
No.
Sam?
No.
No, Sam.
Matthew? I'm having identity confusion. Whoever I am, I have no questions.
And I have no questions. So let's move to comments. Matthew?
I have no comment.
All right. Sam?
I guess my only comment would be that in looking at a lot of sort of more Victorian awnings like that might not necessarily, I mean, this is the era in which the sort of pre-air conditioning era when all these things came out. A lot of them were coincident or maybe even a little in from the side of the trim. So I would advocate to basically match the width of the awning to the width of the trim on each side of the window so that it doesn't overhang the trim portion of the window. It's kind of tucked in within the boundary of the trim of the window, if that makes sense.
Okay.
That's my only comment.
All right. Renard? Elizabeth?
I just like the look.
Okay. Duncan?
Yeah, this reminds me of having to get on a 3-story ladder with my dad and hang these darn things every summer. It really, the way they fit has to do with how the framework is built. And there used to be these old pipe clamp type things that you bolted actually to the side of the house and not to the window frame, in which case they came out a little farther. I'm not sure how these mount, but I agree they should just barely beat the window trim or be even with it to look the best.
All right, thanks, Duncan. Matthew?
I have no comments.
Okay, I haven't got any comments. I think that it looks good, and glad you're doing that. So we need a motion.
I'll move to approve with the suggestion that the petitioner sizes the awnings such that they are as coincident with the window trim as possible, given the construction of the awning frame.
I second it.
Got a second? D?
Sam DeSaller,
Yes.
Matthew Seddon,
Yes.
John Saunders,
Yes.
Elizabeth Mitchell,
Yes.
Renard Cross.
Yes.
Motion carried.
All right, thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
Have a good
Thank
night.
you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Have a nice day.
All right.
Yeah, come out to Montana if you get a chance.
Oh, absolutely. Beautiful out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. All right, so we're going to move on to our final petition tonight, COA-2343. Is the petitioner with us?
I am.
Lucas?
And client's representative as well.
Very good. Great. All right, Gloria?
Okay, so COA 23-38, the petitioner is requesting basically a new addition, but also like a pretty comprehensive overhaul of the kiln at 268 North Madison Street approximately, on the north end of the Showers Brother Furniture Complex History District. So this is the northernmost structure, I believe, existing structure. So the petitioner has taken into consideration feedback from the HPC and has created a carefully designed alternative for the east-facing facade with sympathetic materials to the industrial aesthetic of the building. The utilities would be carefully hidden, and the height-changing elements do not distract or detract from the historic structure. So we've seen this project over the last few years. The last time was a few months ago with a presentation, but the petitioner is here for a COA. As sort of like complete, this would overhaul and replace the previous COAs for this site. So, or I would actually ask clarification, is this considered like still a COA for a phase 1?
Yeah, let's just consider this a COA for phase 1 with, you know, phase 2 in some undeterminate future. So I think it should be reviewed really as a building that could exist for, without phase 2 happening, right? Who knows what the future is. But it's likely that it will get the second and third floor at some point in time.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Okay, so here is a roof and, sorry, let me get this out of the way. A roof and a floor plan.
Can I talk through this as you're going through the slides, just to refresh some memories?
Sure.
Is that all right? On the right-hand side is a diagram that on the north side is connecting the, where they used to store the logs and the sawmill. It would come down a rail line and then it would go into the kilns with the little horizontal lines, and then would come back out of the kiln and would go into the mill as you head south. So diagrammatically, this is sort of describing the process of the wood moving through the manufacturing of furniture. So that became a really important axis for the site. And on the mill side, there's still the opening for that, those carts to come through with the wood. And so that was all very important. So on the north side, a stair, a trellis, and then everything centered around that opening in the mill. And you'll see this in subsequent slides. Oh, you're not in sequence.
No, well, they're, yeah.
Okay.
No, they're not. So, yeah, I just wanted to put the elevations, all the construction drawings first, and then the photos and the renderings afterwards.
Okay.
So, if you want to continue talking about them, or if you want to take control of the presentation.
I just want to say, because this is a phase 1 building, and at some point, likely phase 2 will happen, but of course, you know, we're not sure how long that's going to be. The addition of the entry element on the east side of the building for us was important, because that's the main entry to the building, that's the accessible entrance to the building. Even though it's on the alley side, you really have 6 entrances to this building, but the one on the east side, not only is it a main entrance, but it's also a very visible part of entering into the trades district. Really the first thing you would see entering from the northeast side of the district. So the other change that you're seeing here now is that the masonry of the powerhouse, if we're looking at the east elevation, it's a relatively thin masonry, especially compared to the kiln, and somewhat tall. And the removal of all of that masonry and adding all of the glass not only was going to potentially disturb the structure, but also across the alley, you're really looking at a cinder block wall. And so to maintain the historic character of this utility building, which was the powerhouse, which had had a number of fenestrations punched in it in a variety of different places over the years for various reasons, we decided to go ahead and capture those historic fenestrations on the outside of the building, and maybe just added a few extras just to balance it out. So we get this more random placement of windows, which is in keeping with the history of this building. So this is the major difference that you're going to be seeing in this iteration of the design as opposed to what you were looking at before.
And these are just the doors.
These are the storefronts. Everything is storefront, as opposed to the Marvin windows that we were looking at before. We decided that, and we actually talked about this in the last HPC meeting, that it would be more appropriate to keep it storefront. It's more utilitarian and less residential.
So, yeah.
The middle detail on the bottom is a railing. This is in response to comments from the last meeting. This hides the cooler behind Soma. So we're creating basically this system for railings, which is going to be it's either going to be black or dark bronze, and we can talk about that later. But we can have wire mesh in there. We can have handrails on this system. We can also put in wood slats, and I'll talk a little bit more about materials, but we'll put wood slats in there so it's more of a privacy screen, so we're hiding the utilities, specifically the cooler. The trellis, there was a move to simplify the material palette a bit, and basically it's going to be brick, black or dark bronze, painted steel, aluminum, storefront, etc. But then we're going to play off of the silvered wood that is happening at the mill, that is happening as part of the landscape design with the benches and the trash enclosures, etc. So instead of creating a big black steel trellis, we're going to create a steel base with a little bit more of a substantial base, this 10-inch round pipe, and then cover this with, it'll be a Western red cedar product most likely. And we're going to let that silver out. We're not going to try to maintain the color. And again, this is important for the access that's going through, but it's also really important, as the previous petitioner had pointed out, it's getting hotter. This is the western side of the building, so this is a really great way to add some shade to the western side of the building so that we can maintain the transparency, but also have some shading. One more thing, if you can go back just a second. If you can see back on the left-hand side, there's a taller wood slatted wall there as well. That flushes out on top with a railing that's on the east side, and that's also a privacy screen that is basically shielding sort of the trash enclosure and the cooler enclosure behind Soma. So we're kind of wrapping that wood around. Okay, so this is where I thought we were going to go after the first slide, which is that axis going through. Okay, so there you can kind of see that, and then the opening in the middle.
So the red dots. But
yeah, and there was a lot of discussion about maintaining the historic red corrugated doors there off to the west, but we thought glass would be better. I'm open to comments from the commission. The bottom middle image is the mill trash enclosure, which is black steel and, again, what I like to call silvered wood. So those materials we're pulling through. The soffit material, if you go back, Gloria, please. The structure on the top right, which is the entry structure off of the alley, the soffit on the bottom side of that ceiling, it'll be continuous. The glass basically comes all the way up to the ceiling. Storefront comes all the way up to the ceiling and all the way over to the brick. So I think it creates a really nice transparency that really highlights the powerhouse, and then that ceiling is going to carry through. And we see that ceiling as being, you know, I want it to be either an ash or an oak. Ash is actually getting a little bit harder to come by these days, so we can talk about specific species there. That would actually be a clear sealed product. It would maintain the color. It's not getting either solar or water exposure. The material for the siding on the new addition, and again, if you can go back, please. I think a good place to land, Gloria, would probably be this slide.
Where?
This one right here. You can leave it here. We previously had brick on the lower portion, which would be the future stair tower, which is just to the right of this larger addition. Again, in response to comments from the last meeting, instead of pulling brick around, we're just going to let the entire addition be just the black, the sort of the matte black standing seam material. And there you can see the wood. We have, I've had this issue before where you have multiple front sides of a building and you're trying to figure out how to handle the utilities. Really the only place for us to put a dumpster enclosure is off the alley, which is in keeping with what the mill did, which is putting a dumpster enclosure off the alley, and then just creating a really clean vertical wood structure there for the dumpster enclosure.
All right, is that covered all?
I think so. I'll respond to questions.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, okay. Sam, questions?
Couple. So this guy right here is sort of tucked in right behind there, right?
Yeah.
So I guess, what, does this, when it turns the corner, it transitions to a more railing kind of?
Yeah, if you look at the, so the dumpster enclosure is in the foreground in this image, but if you look beyond the dumpster enclosure, you can see the railing with the wood slats, and that wall that you're seeing on the bottom right is the same height as the railing with the wood slats.
Mm-hmm. But it's a railing, it changes configuration. Is that because of an adjacency to a pedestrian walkway, or why does it change configuration when it turns the corner?
It's a good question, and I suppose there are a couple ways of looking at this. Number one is that the railing language is being carried through in a number of locations. If you look to the left of the main entrance, we have railings there. Those are guardrails. They're 42-inch guardrails. I did not render the wire mesh because it kills everything. So you have to just use your imagination there, that inside of all those openings is going to be the welded wire mesh. So I'm maintaining that same language as it comes around to the top of the wall, because we need that railing there. But as it turns the corner, it turns into something different, which is really more of a privacy wall, and it's much taller.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'll get to that in comments, but I think the only other question I have is there's some equipment on the roof adjacent to the entry tower, right?
Yeah, there is, but it's advantageous that there's a high parapet on the powerhouse with a relatively steep sloping roof behind it, so you only see it in the elevations. These perspectives are pretty true to human height, and we're not seeing that mechanical equipment.
And you're not seeing it from across the way, like when you're coming up Rogers?
Maybe when you're on Rogers, but when you're on Rogers, you're at a much higher elevation. Bottom left is basically standing on Madison Street, and you're not seeing it.
So when you're approaching with from the, which way directionally challenge it? From the west on whatever that number is. Thank you.
If you're up at Upland, I mean, if you're at the intersection of Rogers and 11th, then you're going to be able to look over and see the roofs of the building, but it's not going to be as egregious as the mechanical equipment right over the entry of the mill.
Yeah, hear that. Thank you. Oh, I have one other quick question. So that second bay on the lower right, that goes down.
Yeah.
Is that existing? There's a big pit there?
It's a 4-foot drop.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah, so we're able to, the bays 2 and 3 are one business, that's Sprout Box, and so we have all the accessibility stuff in bay 3, and then stairs down to a work area, and then stairs up to a little loft. So it'll be pretty slick.
Thank you.
Great, thanks. Bernard, questions? Elizabeth? Duncan?
So the window issue on the powerhouse that you talked about, the sort of randomness of it. So are all those original or pre your design existence, or some of them?
66.6% original, thereabouts. We popped a few in just to help to balance it out and bring in a little additional light.
So there were 3 or 4, and now there are 5 or 6. I just don't remember, I don't know if we have a picture of that.
I'd have to, I think we have existing pictures of that facade. I would say there are probably 4 or 5 existing openings, but it's really messy masonry, right? I mean, there are lintels here and there. It's been filled in by brick. Some of the openings I shortened a little bit because, you know, it's adjacent to the ramp. But I worked off of the existing openings as best I could. It's not a really clean, like, hey, there's a lintel and there's a window. I mean, it's a little bit of a hodgepodge. It's not great masonry. The kiln is amazing masonry. I mean, 26-inch thick walls, really, really well built. The powerhouse, it's a little sloppy. They just weren't paying as much attention.
Okay. I think that's all the questions I have.
All right. Matthew, any questions?
No, I have no questions.
No, I don't have any questions for you, Lucas. So we'll move to comments, and we'll just start with Matthew this time.
Well, I'm going out on a limb without all the, not being a professional architect, but honestly, I feel like this looks like great adaptive reuse. I mean, I think, yeah, there's some tinkering with the feeling, with the original sort of sense of the structure, but it's very compatible. You preserve a lot of what it's, how the architecture reflected the function, and you know, honestly, I think it's very sensitively done, and appreciate the update, because I think you guys were in here before was like a less fleshed out kind of version. So I can support it.
Okay. Duncan, any comments?
Well, overall, I really like it. I like it a lot. And I've thought about this building a lot, having worked on the one we're sitting in and the Johnson Creamery and, you know, the whole context here. And having had to grapple with those issues of making something that whose use is not only obsolete, but whose place in the culture is pretty much obsolete. And so I've always insisted that we keep this building, but I've never really had much of an imagination about how it would be done, how it could be done well. And I understand that all of the alterations that you're making, including the glass storefront and the pergola and the entrance on the east side and everything. I understand how those additions you need those in order to make the thing work well, and I think you've done a really, really nice job, particularly with the entryway and the use of that carrying that black through the project. I was kind of, I grappled with the whole pergola idea for quite a while, but I sort of came to the same conclusion about making the outdoor space usable and keeping the heat off the building. And you know, we're doing that now in lots of ways that are pretty creative, but none of them seem to fit this building. You know, the kind of screening that is done on classroom buildings and things to keep the sun down would be really difficult on a building like this. So I think that is kind of the only way you could do that. And I appreciate your comments about the randomness of the windows and sort of and your appreciation of it. My own strategy for when things aren't done that well, or when they're been filled in. Occasionally in these buildings, you'll find lintels just buried in the wall because the window was gone, or they filled it in because there was some reason to do it back in 1920. And for instance, on the Johnson Creamery building, we just left all that stuff in the wall so you could see it. So somebody who knew about it could walk by and say, well, see, they had windows here, but there used to be a loading dock here, and that's why those windows were there. And when the loading dock wasn't original to the building, so the windows, you know, blah, blah, blah. But we even let the masonry be mixed up in terms of brick color because there were so many infill locations that you couldn't come to one unitary color. So we just let it be. So when you walk by it, you see what you described as a messy facade. And that's part of what happens in historic buildings. They kind of get messier and messier. So I think I would I would encourage you to protect those places to the extent that they tell a story. And that's kind of why I ask you about the windows. But I appreciate what you're doing artistically with the windows, because I think it does represent the kind of randomness of how these buildings got used and changed over time. And that's at least a symbolic reference for it. So I'm, with the exception of the dumpster location, which I guess is inevitable.
I wish I had a better spot for it, but.
Yeah, that's.
Just try to make it as discreet and as clean as possible is
Yeah.
the way I'm thinking about it. I mean, I thought about coming in and doing some black steel framework and then infilling with wood, but honestly, I feel like it's better if we just leave it one material.
Yeah, I suppose okay. I mean, I suppose it could just be that black standing seam as well. That would probably
It would be, I don't think it would hold up very well.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the only other thing, Mike, in reference to your comments about hiding utilities, in industrial buildings, there's no reason to hide utilities. And on the Johnson Creamery, we put the cooler right on the roof in the back parking lot, so you could see it.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that's an aesthetic that doesn't track with residential and commercial and business uses, but these buildings, their utilities showed. Okay, matter of fact, very frequently hung panels right on the outsides of the building. So I wouldn't be I agree with you that you probably won't see any of that, but I wouldn't, for my sake, I wouldn't be too worried about it. Utilities are part of the expression of industrial buildings. That's just the way it is.
Okay, I want everybody to remember that when we put all the meters on that back wall.
I mean,
Which is exactly where they're gonna go.
I'll be in your camp. I've
Got a whole meter bank on that little thin piece of standing seam over there.
On the Frosted Foods building, we put the coolers on the roof, because there wasn't any room inside, and it's fine.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact,
the condensing units do tuck away pretty nice up there.
Yeah.
And we put them toward the lower side of the roof so they wouldn't stick out too much.
And then the only other thing was the discussion about phase 2. You understand that this approval for the C of A does not include phase 2 or 3.
You guys have already approved that.
Well,
but, we'd come back, of course.
As far as I understand, this would be the only one that is approved, because the ones that we approved before don't include these changes.
Yes,
Isn't that right?
I know, we would most certainly come back.
So it's possible that you came back in 10 years and there's a different commission sitting here and they go, oh, there's no way we're gonna let you put two more floors on that building. So I'm just cautioning you. I'm not saying that's gonna happen, but if you know you want those things to happen, they ought to be in this C of A or one that comes in pretty darn quick, because you can get stuck with your own design in a way that doesn't, I'm just saying, I've seen it happen before. So somebody
So you're
puts an
saying
addition on it.
If there is gonna be a phase 2, be expedient about it? Or at least be thinking about it?
At least bring it by, to the extent that this group changes, it's pretty fluid.
Sure,
so
sure.
you always run into that risk.
Well, but maybe when we do phase 2, they're like 1, 4, or 5 stories.
I mean, I remember the long discussion we had about whether we thought there should even be a second floor. So, and then it was a railing, and then it was a patio, and then, it's like been through these iterations, and I frankly think this is the best solution you've come up with so far by far. And it doesn't include a second story, so.
We're planning, there's an elevator, we're putting an elevator pit in, and we're putting foundations in for stairs based on the original design, so, just see how it goes.
That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Elizabeth, any comments?
I really like it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bernard, any comments?
Well, I'd like to move that we approve COA 23-38.
Oh, wait, we gotta do Sam.
Oh, sorry.
Sam wants to talk.
Sam said over there.
It's good, I like it.
Yeah, I like
It
it.
has all my favorite building materials in it. It's very masculine and strong and representative of me, so. So, good to go. Sam?
Now I'm wondering what mine
Follow that.
So I want to follow up on something that you were talking about with Duncan and timeline. I got a building approved a little less than 2 years ago, and they expire every 2 years. So that's another thing to bear in mind, and I'll be putting this back in front of you all, my building, in a meeting or 2 or 3. I love this building. I think from it's been a couple of years at least since we saw the first iteration, and it is so much cleaner, it is so much tighter, and I war with, I appreciate what Duncan is saying about having all the, all the infrastructure and utilities, junking it all up, and that's an industrial building, and that's fine, but I love how clean it is, so it's, there's an elegance to this, and I think Duncan's comment about, artistically interpreting the the punched window openings, I think that carries through with the pergola and how it, it traces or reinforces the entry sequence for the wood as it comes into the mill. So it's, it's hearkening back in subtle and symbolic ways to functions that came before that aren't there any longer. And I think there's an elegance to that, which I really appreciate. And I just noticed on I thought it was really cool that it goes down. That's super fun. The only thing that I can see that would make this better in an easy way is, this is going back to simplicity. I think that the little fence that turns the corner is an additional element which you don't need. I would just take that tall fence and have that turn the corner because it's basically doing the same job. And, I like, the way I think about stuff is like you have a system that does a job and you don't need to bring in another system that basically does the same job. Yeah. Keep it as spare and as simple as possible. So, even though it's shorter, just turn the corner on it and I think that'll probably be a little bit cheaper to do and easier and yada, yada, yada.
Yeah, that's a good comment. I've struggled with, how those two are kind of coming through differently.
But I think that's not two things. I think it's one.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
And it just plays off the dumpster enclosure too, right?
Yeah.
So it's the exact same as the dumpster enclosure.
Yeah, it's like it's a utility fence of some kind, and it probably is going to be a little bit thinner on that side because you're not running a dump truck or a garbage truck into it all the time. I guess the only other thing is that the dumpster is almost like a big sign. So you could put some, that could be some signage. But I just want to reiterate how lovely this thing is and how clear the drawings are. And it's a treat for me as a commissioner to have been involved with this throughout the whole process and just to see it get better and better as it goes along. So yeah, I'm probably going to support this one too.
I'm really not guessed.
I can't say anything. Everybody started taking the words out of my mouth all the time. Really great work, Lucas. I like what you're doing. I like how this is going to turn out. So we need a motion for 23-40. I'm sorry, 23-43.
I move to approve COA.
Okay. Second. Great. D.
Sam DeSaller,
Yes.
Matthew Stebbins,
Yes.
John Saunders,
Yes.
Elizabeth Mitchell,
Yes.
Bernard Cross.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
You gotta go, okay, because we don't have any
voting on
more
anything?
business, but we do have a couple more discussions. So, all right. Thanks, Bernard. Is there
Thank
any
you.
deserting us?
I'm deserting if we're just, oh wait, don't we?
We
This
have
is-
a new business. which doesn't need a vote, so we do not need a legal quorum. But the more eyes we have on this, the better.
All right.
Let me see if I got the address correct somewhere around here. 934. It's
934 West Second.
934, not 936. Okay. Okay. So, do you want to present it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure, I can talk about it. Yeah. Can I come up to the
Yeah.
table? Okay. Thanks. Well, anyway, first, again, thanks a lot as obviously being involved in the kiln there. I'm excited that building survived the chopping block a few years ago when it was kind of on the path to destruction, and I'm glad the project survived COVID because, yeah, it was March of 2020 when we went through it the first time, and then, you know, the economics of the project got sideways. So I'm glad we stuck with it and, you know, modified it that we could still keep it going. So thank you. So I don't want to take any more of your time. Thanks for, this is just a discussion because I'm looking for feedback before we, you know, before my wife and I. This is a personal project for my wife and I. So 934 West 2nd Street. This is a bungalow. It's in Prospect Hill. It has, at least since 1991, not had any person living in it. So it hasn't been maintained as a residence. It hasn't really been conditioned. It may have been vacant before that, but I know in 1991 when the medical building next to it at 1010 West 2nd Street was built, this building was, you know, as part of that situation. So I think for at least 32 years it's been, you know, kind of an unconditioned, uninhabited space. And so what my wife and I would like to do, we want to bring this residential parcel in Prospect Hill back to being a functioning residential parcel. And so in looking at this, I've had a couple of people, I've had some Prospect Hill folks, I've actually had some people that have formerly been on this committee look at this from a historical perspective. And then Kevin Potter also came out, and there should be a report in the packet where he's looked at the structure itself. Essentially, if you were to deconstruct this building in order to rehabilitate it, I mean, the floor system is partially collapsed. The roof system is partially collapsed. The masonry porch that was a really cool feature has been struck by a truck that found its way off 2nd Street through the trees and into the corner of it. So that took that out. It's got a wet basement, and, you know, the windows are rotting. It's just, you know, it currently has vinyl siding on it over several layers of other types of siding that have been glommed onto it over the years. So by the time you would peel it back, you know, there's really not much left. And what we would like to do, and this is the discussion, is we would like to build a bungalow here that meets the Prospect Hill Neighborhood Association design guidelines. But before we go down the path of, you know, the time and money to design it, you know, and I just wanted to start with a discussion, because is the concept of, you know, building a new bungalow on this site, is that something that the HPC could support? So, okay, there you see some of the existing situation. There's the floor system that is rotted out. Again, it's just, it's been, like I said, an unconditioned and uninhabited space for at least 3 decades. So it's in pretty rough shape. And it just seems like it's really the first residential lot remaining as you come from the west on Second Street. It's the first one you see. And as you kind of start hitting the houses along Second Street there on the north side of Second Street, and you know, our goal would be to come back to HPC. I mean, I'm assuming we would have to come back through HPC with the design for a property that would need to be approved by HPC and also by Prospect Hill. So that would be our intent and our goal, is to do that. So.
So, what are you looking from us, Don?
Tonight, I'm just looking for general comments on, I mean, there's nothing to approve tonight. It's just, obviously, it takes time and money, and time is money to, you know, put the thought into what we would build here that honors Prospect Hill, honors what is there now, you know, and, you know, functions, you know, within the parameters of the current zoning and guidelines and all of that. But before we go down that path, you know, to get general feedback is, what are the general thoughts? It's really just discussion at this point.
So you're looking to see if demolition is a possibility?
Is demolition a possibility? You know, what's the general appetite or thoughts on that concept of building a new structure instead of, you know, like, again, I think if we take this one back, there's really not much that's going to be left.
Okay,
anyway.
good. So let's, we have some comments, Sam?
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking through the Greater Prospect Hill Design Guidelines, and there are 5 criteria for demolition. And if we find one or more of them, you know, if one or more of them count, then yeah. The report by Kevin Potter is fairly extensive, and there's not a whole lot left to work with. It's a gut, tear down, rehab kind of thing. I understand why you're doing what you're doing. So I am one who, I like to hear what the neighborhood has to say about it. So in addition to coming to us, I would strongly suggest you talk to the neighborhood association and get their read on it, because their read on it often has a pretty huge impact on what this body does. But this one is in fairly bad shape.
When did you guys, you purchased the property, when did you guys take it over?
Let's see, it had been vacant for, I think, at least 15 years before when we purchased the medical building in 2005, this was part of, because it was all those actually 3 lots were all what were sold when that medical practice sold. And so, you know, the medical practice has been operating there, and is still actually, that building is still functioning as a medical practice. But this has always been kind of the eyesore.
What's the cross street for this house? I went looking for it.
It's right across from the eye center. Right directly across from the eye center.
Yeah, you can't miss it when you drive down Second Street. You can see where the center is. Sorry.
It's right there.
Well, I was confused because farther west, there's some 800 numbers. Like all the way out to Corey Lane, the house addresses are 800.
Yeah, so this is 934, and then just to the left of it is it was IU Health.
This is the old OBGYN office.
Yes, yeah, and IU Health, Women's Care, Healthcare has been there for the last 11 years.
I know exactly where it is.
Yeah.
But now it's dermatology.
Now it's dermatology, and this is an alley. That would be maintained.
No, I know exactly where it is now. I wanted to go and just walk around it and get my own sense of it.
Yeah.
My experience with Kevin's reports is that they're very thorough, but I'm always, I always look to his sort of underlying recommendation, which in this case is, here's what you're going to have to do to save this building. You're gonna tear this part off and rebuild it, you're gonna put a whole new roof system on, you're gonna put a whole new floor. But he always approaches it as if it's totally possible and who wouldn't do it, you know? And after years with BRI and years of working with HUD grant projects for the city, I know how remodelable this is. I mean, I know how bad it is, and I know how we have done projects that were so much worse than this. So I wouldn't just give up on it. I mean, usually when we've taken a house and reduced it to its bones, and then put it back together, it's still been cheaper than building a new house. So that's not everybody's consideration, for sure, and you're still dealing with a footprint and a floor plan and size and massing and everything that you may not personally want to have to deal with. But let's just say, as an advocate for the homes, it's not a lost cause. It's as bad as it is. It's been empty. That's bad for it. The roof has obviously leaked into every room, and so conditions are bad. But most of that finish you see in there is very cheap, you know, lightweight paneling and stuff this is all remodeled stuff in there. None of it's the original material, except probably the floor plan is original. I was gonna walk around it only not because I don't believe Kevin, because I do, but just to see if it's straight. Because if it's standing straight and the foundation hasn't differentially settled, you've got probably a pretty good house. You know, the rest of it is always finish. I mean, drywall's cheap, you know, but you would have to strip it out probably to the studs, and you might have to replace some, as Kevin points out. So I just, my inclination in historic districts is not to look at what if we demolish it, but how are we going to save it? And so, you know, that's the way I approach it, and that's the way I've been trained to approach it. So, and as a carpenter, I know how possible it is. So I'm kind of on the, I don't know if I'd call that optimism, because some people are like, no, forget it, I'm not doing that, because that's not what I want anyway. And that's really what the decision for you comes down to. But the decision for us is, how do we protect these buildings that are in historic districts? And so we're always pushing and pulling on that issue, as opposed to what the petitioner's issue may be, which is, I sure would like to have a new house here. And I don't mean to demean that, because it's a totally legitimate thing to do, to want. But from the standpoint of people who are supposed to be protecting historic districts, it's you know, how bad is too bad? That's the kind of question. And you know, some people walk into a house like this and they go, forget it, it's impossible, tear it down. And other people, maybe like me, walk in and go, yeah, $75,000 and we'll have a house, you know. So 125, 150.
That's 350.
By today's prices. I mean, BRI just did a house in very much similar condition, and it's, you know, it's being inhabited, and it's sold for good money.
Thanks, Elizabeth.
So you know, that's kind of where I would come from on something like this. But if the foundation is good and the, you know, water in the basement doesn't bother me, it's just a matter of getting it drained. And
Sam? Comment?
I think you did already.
I guess. I don't need to run my mouth again.
So I do have a question. You guys acquired this in 2005. So why have we waited so long to do anything with it?
Well, we actually have made roof repairs and tried to keep it intact over the years. There was no, you know, it was uninhabitable. It wasn't even really adequate for storage, but we have repaired the roof several times.
But you guys didn't make any effort to rehab it when you had the opportunity early on. I mean, basically what I'm getting to, you've let it sit for the last 13 years, give or take, something like that.
Right, yeah. So, I mean, about, like I said, it had been uninhabited for at least 15 years prior to that. But, so, yeah, we've tried to keep it from collapsing in on. I mean, it probably, if we hadn't done anything to it, it probably would have, the whole back half of the house probably would have already collapsed in on itself. So if it, the fact that it's still standing there is, because we try to at least keep it from completely failing.
All right, thanks. Thank you. Is there any other comments or direction we'd like to give them right now? I, like Duncan, I have not walked around it. I've driven by it. I can't count how many times.
And I can,
I'd
if you guys want to walk around on your own, that's fine. If you want me to meet you there, I'd be happy to meet you there.
Appreciate it.
I don't know, Gloria probably has my contact information.
Excellent.
And I'd be happy to, again, I mean, we've, obviously we live in Bloomington, we've been in the Prospect Hill neighborhood for a while now, and, I think we've been a pretty good business neighbor. I mean, we've, assisted the police with crime investigations in the area, and, so I feel like we've been, pretty diligent about trying to be a good business neighbor. And again, our intent here is not to tear it down and build something completely inappropriate. I mean, I would hope that through discussions with the neighborhood association and the HPC, that a design could be developed that meets, the historical design criteria. I mean, that would be our intent.
No, I think that's very doable. I mean, because the guidelines for Prospect Hill are good, and their committees are pretty good, and there's been a lot of compatible infill in Prospect Hill over the years.
I mean, we've had people, try to buy this property from us. I don't know what their intent was with it, but, so, we've just, that was our thought, is what we would just like to, return it to be, a habitable bungalow.
All right.
And just felt like based on the condition, that it's, by the time we meticulously peel it back, I mean, it's really not gonna be a heck of a lot left. So it'll be, I don't even know if it would be a shell of its former self. And some of the stuff that is on the house currently is not original. It's been tacked on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of modification.
Yeah, we see that. All right.
So,
Well, thank you very much for coming in this evening.
so I don't know that I really got a clear,
Well,
any clarity there.
A little bit.
Because again, what we're trying to decide is, do we start to develop a plan and invest, the time and money to do that? So I'm about as ambiguous as I was when I
I
went in.
think I would start with the neighborhood association.
Mhm.
Over there, Elm Heights, as Duncan said, they have a good design group going, and talk with them and get their take and go from that point.
Okay. So
Okay.
that's a good
You
next
want to
step.
keep it, though. You want to do something yourself with it. You don't want to sell it to BRI or somebody else who will do it.
I would prefer to own it. I would prefer to own a bungalow in Prospect Hill. I would love to own it. I mean, I live downtown, and I would want, when my kids come to town, them to stay here. So my preference is that it's a place that my family can use.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure they'd be interested.
Right, yeah. It does achieve a purpose for our family.
Yeah.
If we.
No, I just
if we
asking
have a
because if you're gonna
functioning
put it up for sale, I would offer it to them.
Right.
Would you be willing to do something like, apply for a partial demolition for the part that's like completely gone, and use that as a moment to explore like what's behind the other walls and see if the bones are really good? Or, because of there's part of this house that is I entered this building.
Yeah.
There's part of it.
Survived.
I had to use my mask, and it was pretty pungent in there.
Yeah.
And the room that the Kevin Potter said has to go, it has no floor. Like it's sunken, and you can see from the outside at the window. But it's that room is gone, like gone. The rest of the house, might have amazing bones, but the skin and the muscles are gone. You know, like it would have to be literally the bones. But I'm wondering if that could be like an in-between, because there are various solutions. It doesn't just have to be and or neither. One solution could be stripping down the house and then putting a major addition to it, or doing something creative where you keep the bones from the front part and demolish the half of the back part. It doesn't necessarily have to be a full demolition. Like you came here asking for questions. I'm just like throwing out
That's a good point.
different sort of in-betweens, that it doesn't have to be necessarily one or the other. Another thing that could happen is that you do the demolition of the back part and the whole building goes.
I don't think.
Like if the bones really aren't that good, but I'm not telling you to like nudge it or anything. I'm not telling you, like, not giving ideas to like be like, but rather like there is part of this building that is fully gone. I went in there and Kevin Potter stated the same. The rest is like the whole skin is moldy and flappy. The roof has to go. The walls have to, but that stuff is replaceable. We all know that stuff. And we have seen other buildings in this area that have been taken down to the bones. But I also know that you kind of just want a new building there. So that could be like, talk to the neighborhood. Like you already talked to the subcommittee, because I know you talked to some of them. But if you present more formally, what would you be willing to really support me in Plan A, Plan B, or Plan C? However, when you come back to the HPC, it might be a good idea to know which plan you really are going to. Are you going to apply for full demolition? Are you going to apply for partial demolition? Like, I know we're not giving you the best, the advice you might want to hear, but also the point of the HPC is to try to save the buildings, you know? So, and in this building, it's like, yeah, part of it is gone, but part of it is still there underneath underneath the fluttering, you know, the scaly, you know, all the ongoing issues. Part of it is still really there. So, and it is a contributing building. Had it been non-contributing, it would maybe have been easier to negotiate. But it is a contributing structure in a historic district, and you know, like making a case for it to be fully gone is a pretty steep ask. It's not impossible. So you're doing the right thing by being here.
Right, yeah, I mean, that's the whole point of
and
the
another
discussion,
thing you can do is like, hey, do you want to set a time and date for some commissioners to actually step and see, you know, and they might say the same thing afterwards. I don't know. Each commissioner has a different point of view and a different specialization. I don't know what everybody else thinks. I'm just throwing.
Sure. I mean, I do think it's, you know, it's a good idea. I mean, absolutely. I mean, want to have the support of the Prospect Hill Neighborhood Association. I mean, I can only imagine, well, I mean, I have talked to some of the people that live in Prospect Hill, some of which are involved with the association, and they were like, please, you know, we would love to have that lot return to, you know, a functioning residence. So, you know, I know they would support the effort. The question is, you know, is it, you know, there's the, and I truly wasn't trying to steer this conversation to, well, you know, here's what I'm asking for. It's, you know, from what I do for a living, you know, I just know the tedious nature of deconstructing a building, and, you know, there's there's just the economic reality of it may not make economic sense to do that. And so then we have a decision of, yeah, what you know, because again, the use is we would like to have this space, you know, for family members and, you know, and to serve as a place for, you know, people to live. So, you know, that's the goal. But it obviously also has to, you know, there has to be some economic sense behind it as well. And so that's what we're just trying to balance.
That's really just a couple of things that come to my mind. And these are tough every time they've come in front of us. And, you know, I don't know if there's a way to ballpark out some of those costs, because, you know, a lot of the language in our statutes do say things like, you know, if it definitely is more expensive to rehab it than to knock it down and build something that makes our lives a little easier. I don't know how to ballpark that kind of thing, so I'm wondering about that a little bit. I did really like what Gloria said about, well, what about, you know, because what is characteristic as I look at this from the street is that sort of, I mean, I might have called, I don't know, it's a little, I'm gonna get jumped on by the architectural specialist, but I might have called it a crosswing cottage. It's that characteristic of the front-facing gable portion, then the longer portion with the porch. That to me is what says, you know, what's historical about this building. And if there's a way to hang on to that somehow, I'm sounding like I'm talking about a facadectomy, and maybe I am. But in particular, because you're not proposing, most of the horrible facadectomies I've seen, like the thing behind it is like out of proportion, and it looks like the original thing crashed into this concrete building. That wouldn't look like that with what you're talking about, like maintaining a smaller cottage style house. Pushing it back would be kind of cool. I'd love to see that porch wall reconstructed. I can't see, or subversion of that. That must have been fairly cool. So really what would make me amenable to it is something that would be preserving really as much as possible of that street view, right? You know, with that particular shape, and you know, what I'm struggling with now, it doesn't matter to me whether that's the original studs or not. You know,
Right, I think that's what it comes to, because I think that is our goal, is to have it reflect the designs that are typical in Prospect Hill. You know, that front-facing facade be something that someone would look at and go, yeah, that looks like it was here. Yeah, I mean, it's part of the context of this neighborhood. And so whether it's, you know, that specific one or, you know, some other style that's prevalent there. But, you know, again, we haven't even started, you know, down the road of starting a design. So, I mean, it could be that I mean, clearly a porch is highly prevalent in Prospect Hill, you know, so I'm sure there would be a porch feature. You know, the front-facing gables are a pretty prominent feature. You know, so it, you know, and it's a narrow lot, so you can't really do a whole lot. It's not like you can, you know, there's not a lot of room to do a bunch of different things. So the depth of the house, of any, I mean, whether you preserve this, the depth is going to, basically you would have to demolish the back of the house and go back, you know, but, you know, it's, you know, it would end up being a deeper structure either way. And it's a pretty deep lot, so I mean, the lot, I think, can support that. So.
I mean, these are tough. I think.
Yeah, no, I know. Yeah.
But
I'm just starting. We're just starting that ball rolling, and just again, it's our desire to have it be habitable and be functioning, and that's what we're trying to solve for. It's been an eyesore for long enough, and you know, whether it's something that we do or, you know, someone else ends up doing, you know, it's kind of time for it to serve a purpose again. So, all right.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate your time.
Well, I see that it's almost 7:30. There was one other thing I was going to bring up under new business, but since there's nobody left. Well, Sam is still here. It has to do with Cascades Park. It has been brought to attention that they want to close the road down there. There were 3 options. There's a memo that's put out, and Gloria brought up the fact that that is a historic roadway.
It's the original entrance to the town.
Yeah, exactly. And so there's talk of wanting to shut Cascades Road down so you can't travel that either direction anymore. So I didn't know if it's something that the commission would like to make a comment to city council about or not. And we don't have enough members here to make that decision.
What's the schedule on that?
I went to, so they're having a meeting, the 22nd, and this is just no elected officials, you know, that's what they're planning to do. I'm not sure when it goes in front of city council.
So we can bring it to the next meeting, which we know.
Yeah, so I just want to bring that to everybody's attention. that
Who's
they-
hosting this meeting?
I think it's planning.
I was
No,
told
no,
that
it's,
this one.
it's not the city at all.
No,
No?
it's,
Is it
it's
the
No,
council?
it's
citizens.
It's the citizens.
Oh, what is the role of the, like, what is the role of planning and transportation in the potential closing? Is that something that planning is involved
I can get back to you. My off the cuff answer is no.
There's a memo that's
Okay.
been put out on this from the city.
But not from Lynn.
I don't know, I sent you a memo, Gloria, but.
in? Yeah, give me 1 second, I think it's another.
I mean, it's a right of way, right? And zoning jurisdiction does not generally go into right of way.
Okay.
Yeah, I just sent it. There we go.
Oh, I take it all back. 100%. That's from planning.
It's just the whole Cascades on that road are currently in the national, like, being processed for the National Register of Historic Places. We remember about a year and a half ago that all of you looked at these or the application. So that has been sent and it's being processed with national parks, and the road being part of the historic Dixie Highway is an integral and incredibly important part of that historic district per se. So I mean, if the road is closed but is kept, you know, like they don't fill it in with grass or something, that there could be an argument to that. But if it's preserved as a road, I think that would be, I think it's just, I think I'm gonna want to, I haven't had time to sit down and research this very well, but I wish I that's something that I'm gonna be looking at, because yeah, there is action being taken on this. And in fact, when it was closed before, it was precisely due to the repairs that were being done to the river or the stream, which involved, inevitably ended up involving the Corps of Engineers and invoked Section 106, which is why this ended up being nominated for the National Register in the first place.
Okay, guys, that's it.
I have one other quick thing.
Yes,
to put
please.
for the next meeting. I want to talk about violations.
Yeah.
Yes.
We've had some hanging out there for almost 3 years now, and we need to deal with them.
I'm gonna meet with legal soon. Legal is going through shifts, and Colleen, I'm so sorry.
I'll be the one that you'll meet with for the NOVs. It'll just be Mike's covering the meetings going forward.
So are you meeting with me for the NOVs and
I
other stuff?
can if you want.
Okay, yeah, it's just, yeah, I need to get those out. It's been on the priority to-do list of just send out, at this point, it's just going to be send out fines. There's just no more to do. We've given them a lot of opportunities.
A lot of rope to hang themselves with.
Yeah,
Yep.
so.
Okay. All right.
Can you forward that memo to us?
Yes, I can
yeah.
forward this right now.
All right, very good. I don't think we have anything else to talk about, so let's just go to adjourn our meeting this evening. Everybody's good? Thanks.
Thank
Nancy,
you.
for staying.